I think it's been about almost 2 years since this scene came out in the manga. And I remember this was technically our first real look at what Mirko is capable of as a hero and why she's ranked number 5 in the top 10 best heroes in Japan. And I think anyone that is an anime only and watched this episode are probably just as shocked as all of us were when we first read this in the manga, because Mirko steals the show. Nobody's gonna tell me, if you sat down and you watched this episode 115, I can't believe we're 115 episodes deep of My Hero, but anyways, if you have watched this episode of My Hero, you know that Mirko just stole the episode. Even though technically her animation sequence of just really popping off and going up against the high ends were like 2 minutes. It was like 2 minutes of a fight, but those 2 minutes felt so good. It was such a good animation sequence. Like, I seriously love this entire animation sequence with Mirko, and getting to see her just go all up against the high ends and just decimate them in this fight. And I think what makes this fight really good, and I think why many, such as myself, enjoyed it when we read the manga, and I feel like a lot of anime onlys that have watched this episode probably enjoy this, is because we get to see a really, really good, strong female character, and she is just savage. She is a legitimate savage. I mean, she literally even loses her arm in this fight. Like, you literally see in the middle of this fight, as she is beating the crap out of these high ends, she loses her arm. Like, you literally see it here. And it just shows the overall nature of her character. Just this brief 2-minute fight really just says a lot about Mirko as a character. How far she will go to accomplish her goal, to be a hero, and to bring down the villains. I mean, she even says herself that every day when she walks onto the battlefield and she's a hero, she puts on her suit, she is willing to think that that is probably her final day. She's always looking at every single day as her last. And even though it's kind of like a dark and depressing mindset, it also basically shows that Mirko lives her life to the fullest. That is what her character literally presents within this episode, that she will live life to the fullest until the day her light goes out. And I think that's why so many instantly garnered so much respect for her character, because, I mean, this is one of the few times we have seen a character, like, lose a limb. Like, you literally see her lose her arm in this exchange. It's not something as little as getting a bruise, or losing a finger, or even having your hand broken, or getting slung into a wall that we've seen. You literally see Mirko's arm. You can literally see on the image here, her arm has twisted, thanks to what the Nomu has done, and it's not going to be repaired. There is no fixing that type of injury, and if there is one thing that My Hero Academia has done to this very point within the story, is that when there's injuries to heroes, they usually stick. Izuku is a good example of this, how he messed up his arms and why he had to resort to start kicking to be able to fight more because his body just couldn't handle one for all. So seeing Mirko lose her arm is just like, whoa, it's a shock, because you know this is going to be damaging. Like, could this be the end of her hero career? Because it's like, when you see her character and how she demonstrated herself in this fight, like just the sheer raw might of Mirko going in and destroying these high ends, it's like, oh, I want more of this character. I think that's what everybody's thinking. But then when you see what happens to her and all that, how, like, you know, she loses her arm, you're probably thinking, is she going to be forced to retire like All Might? Is she going to be forced to, you know, just give up being a hero because she has been maimed? And I think, though, one of the things we need to look at here is that she lost her arm, and which is a devastating blow, not gonna lie. But when we think about her combat style, especially with what these 2 minutes of animation sequence did for her, she uses her legs, which makes sense. That's what a rabbit does. And, I honestly, I love how we get to see this battle damage accumulate on her. She doesn't even care. She even says, like, ow, like she's just like, that hurt, but still keeps fighting. Just something about her, really love her. I love her as a character. I have just been so anticipating this scene. I'm glad to finally see it. Now, there's a few things I do want to talk about with her character that you could obviously get from this very brief exchange within this episode, is that her design in general obviously represents the typical traditional white rabbit. Something you would see in a lot of different literature, a lot of different fantasy stories. I mean, ever since kind of like Monty Python with the very rabid white rabbit and all that, and we've seen it in ReZero, and obviously, you know, Mirko within this episode, she's technically a white rabbit. I really like that depiction of rabbits in like lore and stories, how they're very savage, very feral, and they'll straight up kill you. And I think it's clear that, you know, when Horikoshi Sensei was designing Mirko as a character, he definitely probably took a lot of inspiration, probably from maybe folklore and myth of rabbits, maybe in Japanese culture, but he also probably liked the, you know, how rabbits are very, very dangerous because they'll just tear you apart. I mean, we've seen it in many different stories. Like I said, ReZero is a good example to this. So it's just like, yeah, I love Mirko. Stills the show. I could honestly make probably a 30-minute video just talking about her and why she is a good character and analyzing her scenes. And I'm not talking about just analyzing, you know, her, you know, I guess obvious sections that people will be analyzing while watching this episode. But, let's get on topic, though. So this episode, besides, you know, Mirko just being straight awesome, we got a lot of Nomu lore. And I think that this is a big point that needs to be talked about, because obviously Mirko steals the show, and a lot of people are going to be focusing on that. They're going to be focusing maybe on Kaminari at the end of the episode, and, you know, the raid on, like, the whole hideout with the villains. They're probably not going to think too much about these Nomu that we saw in this episode, like the lore and stuff, and I feel like it's very important, because we've kind of known for a while that the Nomu are corpses. Yeah, okay, we know this. We know they're stolen quirks, we know they're people kind of put together into a corpse to be able to use these different quirks and all that. We know this. It's kind of already been established, but we get a little bit more of a power system for the Nomus, kind of how the weaker versions are, the mid-tiers to the high tiers, etc. We get to see kind of where the Nomu was that fought All Might at the beginning of the story, and it really shows that Nomu definitely was a strong Nomu. By no means was it actually weak. It was a Nomu literally designed to fight All Might, which All For One said himself. And I think another big indication we see from this is to show how far Garaki, like the scientist in question to all of this, how far he has come with his research, his bioengineering, and everything, thanks to All For One. And with All For One being kind of out of the picture, he's thrown into Tartarus, the prison, it's clear that, you know, Garaki, the doctor, he's not able to mass produce. I mean, he says it himself. And it's been very difficult to be able to do all this different types of stuff, to be able to have different quirks put into another body, etc. But it is possible. It does show that he has made a lot of progression, and it shows why All For One has relied on him for so long, because he's able to do something like that just with his science alone. It's kind of ridiculous to think about. But, the overall just description of these Nomus is very dark as well, because like in the extras in the manga volumes, the things I've talked about in the past with the anime, it's been very clear for a while that Garaki takes orphans and he basically steals their quirk and turns them into Nomus. It's a very dark outlook, but the reason why we kind of know this is because it's been hinted at that one of the bullies that used to mess with Izuku when he was a kid with Bakugo was probably turned into a Nomu that attacked Izuku back in Season 2. And so, when we just look at these little details here, Garaki is a sick man. He's done so much horrific stuff with All For One and without All For One, and you can just see the overall demented stuff he's done. I mean, the whole thing with, like, you know, the two little Nomus, like Johnny and all that you see him using to be able to escape or duplicate himself, it shows that he was definitely using even probably people related to him, maybe just to achieve his goals. It's messed up. It's really messed up when you just look at the overall lore of the Nomus and what this episode actually provides. Now, if we're getting to other stuff of this episode, I like this final segment. I actually will say I like this scene in the anime much more than the manga, because I want to keep it real. I like Kaminari. I think Kaminari is a good character. I have nothing against the man. Like, I legitimately think he's a really cool character. I've never disliked him. I feel like, you know, he should definitely get more, you know, panel time or screen time in an anime. And, you know, when he appeared in this moment in the manga, I thought he was amazing. I was like, yo, finally Kaminari's on the front lines, he's doing something, because he's cool. He's really cool. I like his design. It's very simple, obviously. He's a lightning user. He's typical. He's traditional. But I love the way his character is. And seeing him kind of thrusted into the spotlight was a great moment for his character. And I think that the way the anime depicts this scene, where, you know, he thinks about, like, the people he cares about. He thinks about Jiro. It kind of is a callback to him, you know, practicing music with, Tokuyami, just everything about the way this is done with the voice acting, to the music, the sound effects, it really adds so much life to the scene, which, as always, that's what an anime should do. But oftentimes, that does not happen. And I just think that this episode really does a good job with really just pumping people up that are Kaminari fans. Like, this scene is just so good. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. As much as I want him in the spotlight, he has no business looking this freaking cool in anime form. It is insane how good he looks. That's all I'm gonna say. But I love Kaminari. And I think this entire final segment with him basically fighting for Jiro, fighting for his friends, I know it's simple and all that. It's something that many might not care about, but I think it's a really good scene that is done very well in the anime. Just, overall, there's a lot of good within this episode. Like, Skeptic kind of, finding out that, Hawks is a traitor and all that, and trying to warn everybody. They're getting taken by surprise. It's kind of a refreshing feeling in a way when you think about the arc, because typically in these type of stories with, villains, and heroes and all that, usually the villains are the ones that do the ambushing. They're the ones that get the upper hand. They're the ones that always get the full power and attack the heroes when they're not ready. That's usually what happens within stories, like shown in stories. But obviously this is not the case. You have the heroes initiating a wide-scale raid against the villains, and the villains are ready. They have literally gotten caught with their pants down. We even see a brief scene to where, like, when Garaki's, like, looking at Shigaraki, trying to work on him and all that, in, like, the room, is that Shigaraki's, like, only at 70% complete, which shows that if this raid is successful, Shigaraki won't be at full power, which is, like, crazy, because typically in, like, shonen, the villain's supposed to be at full power. So knowing that the fact that's probably not going to happen, it's just like, whoa, okay, that's kind of awesome that Horikoshi is kind of breaking the cliches to a certain extent to do that. So, this is a good episode. I like this episode. My Hero Academia has definitely been on a really good track record in these past 2 weeks. Like, I'm happy that Season 6 is doing good, because I was a little bit concerned and scared because of the events of the last season. I think we all can agree. I'm happy to see My Hero really shaping up to be good. I'm glad basically my favorite arc of the manga getting done right. So, we'll see where it continues. Next week, I'm excited for next week. That's all I'm going to say. But okay, anyways, you all be safe, stay healthy. If you enjoyed this video, as always, leave me a like. It does help me out a lot. Lets me know you guys want more content, etc. But with that, Chibi out.